Wow, what a national anthem. Welcome back to Gears and Glory, everybody. We are recapping the Singapore Grand Prix. And as you can see, it's just me today. Much love to Liv and Britt. They are both busy. I think Liv is not feeling well, and Britt is being a boss. What? Whatever. A boss? People don't say that anymore. What is it? What is it? Boss? Boss ass bitch, possibly? I don't really know. They're busy doing other things. So you have me as your delegate from the Gears and Glory pod. Anyways, we can get into it. Maybe I'm beating around the bush because I don't really want to talk about it, but you'll let me walk you through the whole weekend. I need a little sparkling to keep me company, and yeah, I don't know. Let's just get into it. I did see a couple things I wanted to talk about prior to the weekend. We will talk about everything that happened during the race, but before the race and before that, I saved a couple things to my Instagram. There was one bit, I think that was from the F1 Instagram, where they were offering the drivers rubber duckies for their ice baths. So cute, so fun. Whimsical in the paddock, right? Like so super cute. And I was shocked that some of the drivers said no. Like, I understand you don't want to be constantly handed things, but like you probably recognize the F1 media guy, person, individual. And also, like, it's a tiny rubber duck. Like, I don't know. It's not like hard to say yes, thank you, I guess. And it was like a rubber ducky. It was so cute. I don't know. But let me see what account it was. Wait, yeah, it's literally the F1 official account. And they're like offering out these rubber duckies. And like some of the guys are confused. But Alex and Lando both said no to the rubber duckies. And like they were like themed to the teams, like were team colors. Like I think Charles got a red one. I think they gave like a blue one to Carlos for Williams. And I was like, why would you say no to a rubber ducky? That is so sad. And so I'm just like, what does that say about them? I don't really know. But gosh, that was really carbonated. Pardon. Um Yeah, so before the weekend, I also wanted to touch base. I saved this post from ESPN F1 saying that just about like Singapore as a race in general, how demanding it can be physically. And it came up in the broadcast in the race while they were going of like it hit like mid race, and DC and Julian Palmer and Alex Jakes were like, yeah, this is the point where you're like in the beginning stages of dehydration. This is the point where like you want to see when the body is pushed to the absolute brink, to the absolute limit. Like, are these drivers, are these young men, are these individuals, because like F1 Academy raced there too and it was still as hot, and yes, they're in F4 cars, but like are these drivers all able to make sound decisions while in these like really drastic environments? So yeah, the post says F1 drivers can lose up to 4 kilograms or 8.8 pounds during the Singapore Grand Prix, getting to temperatures up to 60 degrees. For George Russell last year, losing 4 kilos in a race. And like this year, it was even worse because before the weekend even started, it was a heat hazard. So everybody was like, they were like rolling out all of the like cooling vests and everything with like literally coolant. I don't know if it's like the same car coolant. I imagine it's different because that's probably not good for your skin and body. But like I actually kind of thought that the like shirts were like cool. Like I'd wear them with like the like W, or what is that? Upside down W, otherwise known as an M. Um, with like all of the like tubes for the cooling liquid, which is so cool that there's like, haha, whatever. Me by myself making puns to myself. Um, um, with the cooling liquid. It's so cool that they have like something engineered to like solve those problems so that they can like still race during like these like really intense situations, because like they figured out something for almost everything, right? Like rain um has the tires solutions. Like there's no solution for like they're not gonna put a roof on the car. Like that's not ever gonna change. And then like the cold, like you just have to do a lot of preparation, I guess, and like tire prep. And but the heat, like it's way easier to warm something up than it is to cool something down, I feel like. So I just thought it was neat that they had something set up for that. But yeah, during FP1 there was like a question of like if the race weekend would even finish because it was so hot and so humid. So like everybody was wearing cooling vests, and if they were opting out of the cooling vest, I believe they had to add a certain amount of weight to the car so that they were even like in terms of weight, just like competitively, and it wasn't like a competitive advantage to not want to like overheat and give yourself heat stroke during a athletic event. But yeah, let's see. Let me run through the free practice sessions real quick. FP1, again, that's when they were talking about the heat hazard a lot. Alex Albon had a brake fire. He only got like 2 laps of practice that round. And the top 3 were Fernando Alonso, which was a little surprising. Charles and Max, P2, P3 respectively. And it was kind of neat. I kind of love whenever like Fernando Alonso is just like kind of out there. But like he had an interesting weekend because he had a lot of moments of promise and it just like didn't shake out in his favor. And I know he's been quoted as saying like I'm the unluckiest driver ever, but like he kind of is. So that's FP1. FP2 was the whole incident that we had in the pit lane between Charles and Lando. So it was like an unsafe release for Ferrari, and I use quotations because it's it's a judgment call, I feel like, of like, did Lando have enough time to stop? I have seen the clip multiple times. I thought it was hilarious. I mostly thought it was hilarious because of, I feel like there's this image of Charles as being like a golden boy and like so vanilla, basically. Like he didn't almost run both himself and George off the track trying to pass him this season. I think that was Zandvoort before he got crashed out by Kimi. I'm not really sure. But like he will run himself and others off the track. Like he races Maxwell, and like that's why there's so much buzz around like them as like competitors, because they'll both like run each other off the track trying to win. So I just thought it was really funny. All the memes that came out of like Charles's face of like he's just like unbothered. He's like, yeah, my team told me to go, and then there was a car there, and my car's fine. So I believe Lando got a new front wing, and the nose of the car, the like front bit, got replaced. So that happened. There were a lot of crashes actually in FP2 because then George crashed. I believe he hit the wall, and he was able to get his car back to the pits, but they had to red flag it to get debris off the track. And then Liam crashed out pretty bad. So that was another red flag, which is like not uncommon for Singapore. In like my Instagram post for Fast Facts is like super notorious for, I mean, it's a street track. Like the barriers are super unforgiving. So there were 2 red flags. VCAR would have a lot of work to do before FP3, but the session ended with Oscar P1, Isaac P2, and Max P3, which is also so cool to see Isaac up there. Of like, I mean, he's like my rookie of the year so far, at least. Like, no hate to other rookies because I'll talk about Ollie Behrman later. But like, I think he is doing the best in the car that he's in, of like a midfield team consistently in Q3, like really giving the other drivers a run for their money. So that's FP2. FP3, Liam had another crash, but otherwise it was uneventful. I did not watch the whole session, but I did read the report, and it was just kind of like, and then someone was on a long run and they got in each other's way because it's a street track and it gets really busy. Yeah, that's gonna happen. I mean, so FP3 then ended with Max P1, Oscar P2, and George P3. So this was kind of where we started to see the foreshadowing for what the race outcome was going to be, but none as big of a foreshadowing as quali. So in qualifying, Q1 was so interesting. There's a couple of notes in here that Liv left, so I'll call those out when they're hers. But we took notes on a lot of, well, it was Liv gave me 2 notes from Q1, which was very sweet. We like took a lot of similar notes from Q1. But yeah, so Oscar in Q1 was given a yellow flag. I think it was in the chicane after turn 1, I believe, where another car like let him by, and then there was like a yellow flag for it or something. It was like a really confusing situation where it was like the FIA and like the marshals, there was like a reaction by the like governing body that like nobody really understood. Of like, I was like really confused why. And Alex Jakes even in the broadcast was like, yeah, I'm confused about that. Oscar was complaining about it. So that was just a little bit of a tiff there. It was so interesting that even in Q1, the broadcast commentary was already bringing up Mercedes opportunities this weekend because it's been so often talked about like this season and last that like the Mercedes does better in the cold. And like it has shown that performance. And Singapore's not known for being particularly cold, so it was really surprising that like that was part of the conversation. Um, but like it kind of worked out for them. Um, but yeah, so there was kind of like there was a lot of traffic during qualifying sessions. So Oscar wasn't actually able to put in his first flying lap during Q1 until 6 minutes to until there were 6 minutes to go. And then he put one in and he only made it up to sixth behind Isaac Hadjar and Ollie Behrman. And then ahead of him was Max and the Ferraris as well. But like for McLaren to put it in like sixth was kind of shocking a little bit. On a first lap, I mean, it's a first lap. The track development is like not really there. Um, so I think they were talking about it being a little slick in places. I don't remember that a ton. But and this is another note. The first note that Liv left was the yellow flag for Oscar that we were both like, huh? And then the other note that Liv left was that Gasly got lost hydraulics, WTF. And my note was Gasly lost the car and then frowny face. So yeah, huge bummer, really inconvenient. It sucks for a driver when it's like, and I know we've talked about this. I think I brought this up myself, but like it really sucks when the whole team comes together and the driver's only job is to get that car around and then it's outside of the driver's control and it's like outside of the team's control because the car's running. And then if you're out, then you're out. There's like nothing more you can do. And it kind of reminds me of the way I've been rewatching Ted Lasso lately. So shout out Premier League. Our West Ham's new coach had his first loss. Oh my God, cute. Anyways, Ted Lasso was talking about coaching as like his like son in the show says like, oh, it looks like you're not doing anything. He's like, well, I'm not. Like all I can do is prep and then they're out there. Like all the drivers can do. Like, yes, they have radio. So they can like communicate that way and talk about strategy. So there is some more things that you can do, but like especially for the engineers and like the people back at the factory who are like putting together everything, like doing the aerodynamics and the floor and the wings and everything. And then they make the part and they send it out and it's like, yeah, it just kind of has to perform. Like the cooling system, the braking system, like that all just kind of has to perform once it's out and like it's hands off. So it sucks when it comes down to something like that. And it's not like it's almost better slash worse, of course, when it's like a strategy error, because then you could have had control over it, but at least you had control over it. So I don't really know. But yeah, so that was kind of Q1. Nothing really crazy happened. Nobody crashed, I believe, in Q1. Just that loss for Gasly. And he was very polite. He pulled over into like a tiny little runoff area, did what he could to get out of the way. Very, very sad. But so out in Q1 were Gabby Bortoleto, Lance Stroll, Franco Colapinto, Esteban Ocon, and Pierre Gasly in that order from P15 to P20. So bummer. Sorry, Liv. Fat bummer. Q2. My first bullet point was that we saw Lily, Rebecca, and Alex during Q2. It was really funny because whenever they're slow, it's like, and then let's show the wags. Everybody loves the wags. And like, who am I gonna complain? I love the wags. Show me more Leo Leclerc though. Like we should have like a dog cam that they cut to, or like, I don't know, something fun. In Baku it could have been cat cam. Cut to all of the cats roaming the paddock. That was so cute. But yeah, let's see. It was interesting in Q2. Kimi Antonelli put in the fastest lap with 2 minutes to go, which was crazy because again, the Mercedes and it's hot. And then George put it to the top. I was really nervous the entire time because Charles was in the drop zone for most of the session. And then on the last lap, he put it in P6, which was just above where like it starts getting like low-key kind of dicey. But thank goodness he was not out. Unfortunately, Nico Hulkenberg, P11 through P15. It was Nico Hulkenberg, Alex Albon, Carlos Sainz, Liam Lawson, Yuki. They were all out. But Ollie made it into Q3, and I'll talk about the Williams after. But But yeah, Q3, I mean, Q3 was kind of a quick conversation. George put in an insane lap and then nobody was able to pass him. And then he improved on his lap and a lot of other people didn't improve on their laps. Like once they were going for their like second flyer or third flyer or whatever it was. So George gets pole with basically a lap that he set on first run in Q3. So that was crazy. Props to George. I don't think we talk about George enough, and I keep saying this, and I know Liv will back me up, and especially Liv's son will back me up on this, but we like don't talk about like it's all of the memes that are going around. It's like all the memes are usually like does nothing, gets pole, and it's like Max Verstappen because like Max like lifts his little finger and he's winning a championship. It's insane. But like George is working hard. He's putting in the hours. He's doing what he can to get the best out of that car. He slammed into he was using like it was like bumper cars basically. Like he was using the barriers the one lap. Like Julian Palmer and the broadcast team like could not stop talking about how George basically used the wall to get himself that crazy lap. So that was super, super cool. And like, I just don't know. I don't think we talk about George Russell's capacity and ability enough. I do think he's a stellar driver. I don't know how he doesn't have a contract. I don't know how he doesn't have a contract. If I keep talking about that, I'll go crazy. But anyways, after qualifying, I'm scrolling on my Instagram and it was funny. We were going through our old bingo cards that we did the episode for. We'll recap and we'll post them. But I was going through mine because I never wrote mine. I had written mine down and then I lost the like phone note or whatever. So I was taking notes on it again. And one of my notes was like, oh, Sofia unironically becomes a Williams fan, but like for actual. And I was like, no, that's definitely happened of like, I wear my Williams, shout out Logan Sargent. I wear that hoodie all the time. I like keep up with them a lot. Carlos's podium was insane for me. So I was scrolling Instagram and devastated to find that both Williams were disqualified from qualifying because of a wing issue. I believe it was a rear wing issue. And I think that it might have something to do with the fact that like the flexi wing rule change happened during the season. So I wonder if it has something to do with that. I would be curious to look that up some more. But if anybody does know the specifics on why, feel free to let us know. Slash me, because it's just me today. But also I'm sure Liv and Britt would want to know as well. But yeah, devastating news for unironic Williams fans like me. So that was a bummer. Yeah, and then we get to the race. And to be honest, the race itself was like, once the exciting stuff was done, it was like kind of a bore. It was like, there was not like really a ton going on. Really, like, I went and I watched it with my mom. It was really cute. I watched it with my mom, and so we're watching like the beginning sequence come in where they like show you all the drivers. And and I'm like, wait, mom, Oscar's coming up because my mom's a huge Oscar Piastri fan. And so she's like blowing him kisses when he shows up on the screen. We weren't even watching it in real time. We were watching it like way after because it was so early my local time. But yeah. So I guess I'll just start talking about it now, even though I really don't want to. But yeah, so our starting grid is George and then Max beside him. And then Kimi, and then Oscar. No. What the heck was the starting grid? Please hold. I'm going to look it up because I don't want to misspeak and I feel like it's important. But most of all, I thought it was really interesting. Like Max talked about it too in a post-race interview where he was talking about how the softs were on to start the Red Bull, both Red Bulls. So they were like going to try something different because like if he couldn't get it out, get pole, like he's going to at least try something aggressive, which is like so Max Verstappen to say. But yeah, so it was George, Max, Oscar, Kimi, then Lando, then Lewis, then Charles. So Charles is in 7th at this point. We've had better qualifyings. It's fine. But yeah, so I was honestly expecting a little bit more drama from the front two at the beginning because, I mean, George and Max have had their beef, and I just thought that this was going to be like a little spicier from them. But honestly, George had a really good reaction time off the start, but they like didn't even like, you know how like this is probably a good visual for anybody watching the video. If you're listening, I will try to be descriptive. Of like when you see two drivers who are like really trying to take each other out at the start of a race, they will angle their cars like directly at each other. Like they're not at 90 degrees because that's like you can't start a race that way and just like crash directly into each other. But they're like doing everything but that essentially to line up their cars in the start box. So, but like George gets a really good getaway, and then Max is left to chase him essentially. But yeah, and so at this point, Lando and Oscar end up side by side. Um, and Oscar loses a spot to Lando. So Oscar drops to fourth, Lando goes up to third, and somehow Charles ends up P5, just like picks up his skirts and just like steps over everybody and sets himself down and is like, no, I'm here now, thank you. And like that was something that I was kind of upset about. There were like a lot of overtakes in the broadcast that they just like didn't show until like way later, and then it would be like replay from like lap 48, and it's like we've got like 5 laps to go, and I'm like, I don't really care about what happened that long ago. I kind of care about what's happening now, please, thank you. So we have the McLaren on McLaren violence, and we get a series of radios that I have done my best to write down word for word from the broadcast. So they have contact. This is when Lando's front wing, I believe on the right, was like all bent out of shape, and it was like kinked out to the side. But even the like commentators were saying like, we saw Charles's wing get damage in China, and he had like a hell of a race. So like some people get that front wing end plate damage and it doesn't harm them entirely, which also I'm like, then what's the front end plate doing? But I don't know everything about aerodynamics, nor am I an engineer. So I'm not the authority on front wing end plates. Not even close. So Lando gets that damage, and Oscar is upset because that's his teammate and you're supposed to be, you know, not crashing into them. Which like I feel like is super valid. And I think this is one of the other things that I saved on Instagram was that, to Oscar's understanding in an interview, he states that papaya rules is literally one rule: don't crash into each other. So there's a lot of different perspectives on this. I think there were a lot of perspectives, and there's a lot of different variables that go into it. Of like Lando needed to not crash into Max either, and it put him in a really complicated position, and Oscar was right there. So anyway, so they have contact, and Oscar states that wasn't very team-like. He then follows up and says, quote, so are we cool with Lando just barging me out of the way, or what's the go there, end quote. And the FIA did note the collision. They noted some other collisions that happened further back in the field. I can't remember who it was. So there were a couple of like the pop-ups at the top of the screen noting some action, but it ended up not being further action. Yeah, which I think is just a really complicated place to be. I think that in an effort to be fair, McLaren has been doing a lot. And I also think that a lot of things are inherently unfair. So introducing that attempt and that amount of effort to get something that feels really hard to get is going to complicate things a lot. It's a lot to say, basically, like, it's a really complicated position to be in on both sides. Like, if I'm Lando, like, yeah, like, oops, I crash into my teammate who's leading the world championship. That's better for me. But also, I'm Oscar, and I'm saying, like, all of these times we've been told to not crash into each other, and now it's fine. Like, now we're just going to let it go. So it feels like every situation is so unique that fair has such a dynamic definition. I think Podium Sunday said something about this as well. Of every situation is so unique. So yeah, so DC actually followed up and said, when they're fighting for a championship, DC was saying, with reference to the position change for the pit stop that we saw previously this season, where like Lando had a really slow pit stop, and then they basically had Oscar follow team orders to make up for that. DC was saying you can't have it one way and then not the other, which is such a complicated thing because one way and then the other is such a multifaceted thing. But it does feel, unfortunately, that because they didn't take action on behalf of Oscar this time, that they may be showing an edge of favoritism. But, like, was it a fair pass? Was it not? At what point is the team going to stop getting involved? Like, I think that's like a bunch of questions that McLaren ought to ask themselves that they might have started to answer. But yeah, it's just a tricky place to be. So yeah, Tom Stallard tells Oscar that there's no further action, and Oscar says that's not fair, which again, like, is a really complicated place. Like, he went on to say, quote, if he has to avoid another car by crashing into his teammate, then that's a pretty shit job of avoiding, end quote. To which David Coulthard said, that's a compelling argument. And it's tough because, like, I feel like McLaren have to ask themselves, like, what are they controlling for? Like, it's not a sterile environment. It is not a consistent environment, which again goes back to what Podium Sunday said of, like, it's not fair, first of all, and then, like, every situation is going to be different. So finding what fair looks like in every single individual situation is really complicated. And then the history that feeds into that complicates things further. So I just think, I wonder if papaya rules and, like, the halo around that of events and of decisions that have been made have soured people on the notion. So I think it's just a complicated place to be. I think it was a bummer to see two teammates clash, but I don't think it's unexpected. I think it would have been more of an event had there not been any previous team involvement. So I don't know. I just wonder. It's always going to be, hindsight's always going to be 2020, and it's always going to be, like, everyone's going to have their opinion about, like, oh, I would have done this differently, or, like, I wouldn't have done that, I would have done this, like, then I would have had, like, XYZ outcome that I want. So I don't know. And then that was basically everything that happened in the race, and then George ran away with the lead, and then there were a couple of really bad pit stops, and that was it. No, I mean, like, yeah, so George runs away with the lead. He ends up 8 seconds ahead by lap 17, which is kind of crazy because, again, the Mercedes is not good in the hot weather. Like, that was crazy to me. So George runs away with it, and then people start to pit, and I don't know why there was a curse on the front right tire, but there was like, they need to cleanse the pit. They need to, like, sage the pit lane. So first of all, Gabby went in. Gabby also had front end plate damage. It ended up falling off. And because it was not on the racing line, there was never a red flag or a yellow flag or a safety car to go pick it up. Like, it was just like, whatever. Let's just hope nobody drives over it. So he goes in to get his front wing and nose replaced. And I guess that they were doing a pit stop also. And then a tire starts rolling off into the pit lane. And then some guy has to grab it, and then he almost gets hit by a car, like, one of the cars coming down the pit lane. Oh my God, it was insane. It was actually crazy. That was super random. But yeah, so there was a little bit of strategy going on at the front, which got a little dicey and complicated. So Lando attempted an undercut on Max, but wasn't really able to make it stick. Leclerc also made an attempt to cover off Antonelli on a pit stop, but he ended up behind more cars than expected. His in-lap was not as powerful as it needed to be, but he was on cold hard tires, and Nico Hulkenberg was in front of him, and he sent it on him. Like, those tires were probably not his temperature, and he was like, I'm not going to be behind a stake right now. That's just not going to happen. So he absolutely made it. Really, like, ballsy, really send it type move, which I love. There was a little bit more drama in McLaren Orange. Sorry. Oh my God, papaya. Oh, sorry. Where Will Joseph asks Lando if he will let Oscar pit the lap before him. So, like, Oscar would pit first and then Lando would go. And then Lando said, quote, yeah, no, I would. And then I have in brackets unintelligible because I could not make out what he was saying, and I replayed it like thrice. So I would ask them to speak up. But honestly, the fact that they were on the radio at all, going that fast, dehydrated, thinking, surrounded by other cars, The walls are going by you a million miles an hour. I don't need you to enunciate, honey. I just want to know what you're saying. That's the only thing. So yeah, so then I'm confused. And then David Coulthard is connected to my brain apparently because he says, sorry, did he say yes and then no? And then basically it was a no. So Lando pit lap 26. He had a good stop. It was a 2.1 stop. And then Oscar pit. And then Oscar had a 5.2 second stop. Yeah, your connection didn't cut out. I'm just suffering. Yeah, ouchies. That one hurt me. Yeah. So his front right had trouble going on. And then Fernando Alonso had a 9.2 second stop because his front right was having an issue. And then Lewis is going in to get his gonna do his pit lane, pit change, pit stop, whatever it's called. He also had an issue with the front right. What is going on? That was so odd. But it's like they're not all using the same wheel guns, nor is it the same person, nor is it even like the same tire. Because why would they reuse it? They were like, that's not anything that would ever be reused by another team during the same race. So that was crazy that like so many people had front right issues. Something's up. Sage the pit lane. So that was super odd. Yeah, I found that really, really strange that it was all like consistently front right. There were engine issues for Isaac. I believe his engineer said he was losing 3 to 4 tenths a lap. But he did do a hell of a job defending. He was defending really hard against Fernando Alonso, even with the power unit issue. And he gave him a run for his money. Like he made Fernando fight for it until basically like DRS took over and there was nothing that Isaac could do. And like it was kind of painful to watch that car go down the straights next to a car that was not having issues. It was a tough watch. That one I was hurting for. That was really, and again, it's like one of those like it's out of your hands. Like you can finish the race where you can finish the race. Like the engineers like have given that up, and now it's just up to Isaac to do what he can with it, and he did so much with it. Let that be known. He really put a lot of effort into making that work. All right. There were a couple of other really funny radios. Fernando Alonso was on one today. Fernando Alonso needs to be cherished and just protected at all costs. I adore him deeply. So Fernando's engineer comes on and is just giving him like a lap update. He's like, yeah, 34 laps to go. And Fernando responds, quote, if you speak to me every lap, I will disconnect the radio. And that was it. It was so funny. He was absolutely on one today. There was another message which has so many curse words. I will not be repeating it right now. But yeah, he was on one. I think he also said something about Isaac when he finally passed him, something like an award for him. I don't know if he was being sarcastic or not, but definitely an award for, keeping Fernando Alonso a world champion behind him with an engine that's basically kind of broken. So anyway, that's very funny. Another radio that I thought was very funny was Max saying the rear is like a handbrake, help please. Of like, Max is never polite. I feel like he's like either sassy diva slay queen to GP when they're gossiping about other drivers, or he's complaining about the car. Or he's like being like neutral, like, oh, Simply Lovely would win, like thanks to everybody at the team. Sometimes he's excited, but he's like not very often like polite when he's complaining about the car or talking about the car in a sense that it needs to be improved. But it was so funny to me. Oh my God, whoa. It was so funny to me. It was so funny to me that he was like, help please, help me, help. So I thought that was funny. George dropped the old man persona and said, oh, blue flags. There was a curse at the beginning that I will not be repeating. Blue flags, get out of the way. He was like so over it. Yeah, the back markers were like really concentrated, and it's so interesting to watch the map. If you have like F1 TV or if you're watching like the app, I think it'll show people's locations on the track at any given time if you're watching live. And it is crazy to see how obviously they start so bunched up and they spread out so much. And then people start to get lapped and lapping people on a street track. That's like kind of difficult to pass on in general. Like that was crazy work that they had to do. So, let's see. By the end of the race, I think Oscar was very, very tired in a lot of senses of the word. I think you're left alone to think about things. Your mind can go places and then you're dehydrated and you're tired and whatever. So his engineer ended up asking him, like if there's a safety car, we'll take a soft, let me know. And Oscar was basically like, you know what? It's up to you guys. Yeah, I don't think he was very happy with how the team handled it. That was pretty apparent in the way that he was reacting. It's tough. But yeah, and then I was just watching the broadcast, randomly green sliding smoke. Oh my God, who is it? What's happening? Nico Hulkenberg, his rear locked, car went sideways, spun him around, so he ends up facing back toward the track into a runoff zone. Thank goodness, because if that's a wall, he's done. That's a DNF. So just like shocking, but it's like we're watching the broadcast and the broadcasters are talking about it and they're like, whoa, what happened? Because they're seeing the same thing that we are. So they're just reacting to what's on the screen. They're like, what happened to Nico Hulkenberg? And then they cut and then they show the replay of like the rear lock and the lock up and the tires and him getting spun around. But crazy, he was able to keep the car running, immediately got back out. Absolutely destroyed his race, but he finished, which I do think is very valiant. And my mother said, that is called resilience. And she said that we could all learn from that. It was really cute. My mom was like taking notes of what the commentators were saying of like, you can only control the controllables, I believe was something someone said. My mom was like, that is such good advice. I should write that down. Like I should take note of that, which I love. But yeah, toward the end, there was a little bit of some Ferrari musical chairs where like Lewis pitted for soft. He had a pretty quick stop, so no front right issue. So he pitted for soft. Kimi ended up passing Charles, which was one of those things that they like didn't show until way later. And then when they did show it, honestly, I have to be honest, I know Charles is like my main man, but that was a really good pass. That was an aggressive pass. He sent it and he made it happen in a clean way and didn't crash him out and make him sit on the inside of the track on a sad hill for the rest of the race. So good job, Kimi Antonelli, for not crashing out his competitors. Love that. But yeah, so yeah, I literally said, not gonna lie, it was a good aggressive dive on Charles, clean, unlike Zandvoort. And then Lewis ends up passing Charles with his softs. I'm not really clear on whether or not this was team orders or not, or if he just got it on merit. Because then lap 60, Lewis says he lost his brakes, so then Charles passes him again. But I don't know again if it was like a team orders, like let Charles back through, or like Charles is like, this guy's brakes are toast, like I'm just gonna pass him, even though we're teammates. I don't really know what that is, but it was just kind of like a lot of dancing there. But yeah. And that kind of brings us to the end of the race. Our winner was George. He forgot to do his pose on top of the car, so he did it on the ground, which I'll allow. He also was just like holding the steering wheel for a while. I think he was flustered. Loved it. Very relatable. So he got P1, Max was P2. He managed to keep Lando behind, which was kind of a difficult feat, but on a track that's kind of narrow like that with how wide these cars are, it kind of gets to a point where like, oh my God, are they going to do something? And then they're just locked in the same positions for the entirety of the race. So yeah. The big news coming out of this race, which I have been sitting on because I wanted to talk about all the other McLaren things, is that McLaren did, with these points, they mathematically won the constructors. Nobody else can beat them. So P2 is going to be between Mercedes and Ferrari. Mercedes is ahead right now, but they are within like striking distance of each other. I believe we have like, gosh, 6 feels like a lot. There can't possibly. Austin, Mexico, Interlagos, maybe 5 more races. There's like enough that like they could pass it back and forth depending on how performances go. We'll see what happens there. Obviously, I would love Ferrari to get P2. We'll see what happens. But yeah, that was the big news. Congratulations to the McLaren team. They have won the constructors, which is very exciting. It's kind of crazy that it happened so early in the season of like, even last season, I mean, I don't know. I wasn't watching religiously when Max was winning 2023. So I don't know when he won the drivers. That must have been crazy early. And then with Checo, like I don't know when they won the constructors mathematically, like that nobody else could keep up. But it feels crazy of like last year, Max had to wait until Vegas to like win. Yeah, I don't know. But yeah, two-time back-to-back. I think I wrote something down. Yeah, that this is the first back-to-back constructors championship for McLaren since 1991, which is 30 some years. So that's a long time. But yeah, so McLaren won. George ran to his team. He was getting some butt pats. Very cute. They looked tired. They looked destroyed. They did not look well. The driver sitting down after the race, like George was just like, I gotta sit down. And Lando was like, you know what, brother? That's such a good idea. And Max was like, yeah, I'm gonna lean against this thing. Don't talk to me. Which is also crazy work to like, you're dehydrated. You've just driven in a car for I don't know how many hours. And then Jensen Button's like, so how did that go? Why don't you tell me how you feel? Microphone in your face, the whole world's watching. And I'm like, couldn't be me. Get that microphone out of my face. So that was crazy. Fernando got driver of the day. I do think this was a good choice because we did a whole episode on like why you should vote for driver of the day. Go listen to it. I think it's a very good episode. But like George was in the running for it, I think. And I was like, why? He went P1 to P1. Like, yeah, yay, George drove very well. But like he already won the race. Like he gets to have that. Fernando Alonso had like a couple of pits where he like got pitted like way back, like in the order, and was like struggling to get back up, just to like not finish last. So he put a ton of work in there. I don't think he actually made up any positions. I don't really know. I can't remember where he finished off the top of my head. Let's see. He finished 10th. So he got what? No, hold on. This is the starting grid. Please hold. What? He finished 7th. So he started 10th, finished 7th. But also got like bumped way down in the order and had to make all of those positions back up over and over again. So like, I agree. I think he was driving very well. Very, very well. Oh my God, I can't talk anymore. Jensen Button did a little interview of Zach Brown and Andrea. Stella. They did cut to Kim Illman showing Carmen, George's girlfriend, pictures on his camera, and she was just smiling and watching me like, oh my God, yay. So I thought that was super cute. And I think that the podium was also good. The cool down room was crazy. It was just Max sitting there for a little while of like watching like all of the highlights alone. So that was kind of lame. But yeah, they all got appropriately soaked with champagne, in my opinion. And other notable point scores, Carlos got P10 and Ollie Behrman got P9. So that was good points for them. I mean, it's points. It's a point. But yeah, so, yeah, it was really funny at the end of the podium. Max is just like shaking the champagne at George. George is trying to drink out of it, and Max is just like not letting him even breathe because there's so much champagne in his face. So, oh my goodness, what a race. Lots to digest, I think. I think the big question coming out of this, now that the constructors is kind of like a non-issue. I mean, that was all mathematically. That was crazy. The points distance to the last, like no one was ever going to catch up. But I think the question is just going to be like, how are McLaren going to want to handle incidents in the future this season? Because it's so close. I think that that's a question that they're going to have to ask themselves, is to continue being fair. What does that look like? And that's like not an easy question to answer. So crazy race. Much to think about, much to sleep on. But yeah, let me see when the next race is. I think we have a weekend. Do we have a weekend off? What does the schedule look like? We will keep you fed with content though. Yeah, we have a weekend off. So everybody enjoy the weekend no, we don't. Yeah, we do. I know what day it is. Don't worry. Yeah, so we will bring you more F1 content. We'll have some chit chats. We might even do another recap with all of us. But yeah, we'll catch y'all for Austin. So without further ado, see you next time. Bye.